Good morning and Mirmin Jess. It's fantastic to be here. My name is Elsa and yes, that's me on the third photo. Climate crisis is a state of emergency, some would argue. This morning I was listening to the Swedish radio, and on the news, they were telling about the Swedish youth-based NGO suing the Swedish government and using the European Convention on Human Rights for that case. And the argument was that lack of sufficient action from the Swedish government is so dangerous, so it is threatening our human rights. Lack of sufficient action when it comes to climate, of course. And many of you know that it was a successful case in the Netherlands, and the Swedish organization is inspired by that, and it will be extremely interesting to see how it goes, because climate crisis is perceived as a state of emergency by some. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be here with you today. It's fantastic to do this also together with civil rights defenders that I have been following since 1997, when I started to work with human rights in Minsk, Belarus. Civil rights defenders were there already then. And it's an honor to stand in front of you, so many people that we need to safeguard and defend our democracy. Can we use emergency as an excuse to violate human rights? No, I would argue, we cannot. And I fully agree with Darian Pavli, where are you? When you were, exactly, thank you. When you were talking about that state of emergency is actually a stress test for our democracy, for our human rights, and for our legislation. Because the principles for human rights, they do not change when we have a situation of emergency. It's only the circumstances that change for a moment. And we do not want to hold on to that moment for too long. So the government response, it should be in proportion, it should be non-discriminatory, and it should be very short in time. Because we cannot use the state of emergency to limit human rights for too long. And this was also brought up by President Tusa. Thank you. It's a very interesting case when a government limits the freedom of, for example, assembly during Corona or COVID-19. Is that a problem? Well, for you to decide, because this is what you will be discussing these days and during this conference. I actually think that COVID-19 provides us with an enormous amount of interesting cases for exactly this topic. So how do we make sure that we do not abuse the situation of emergency, that we do not abuse and limit human rights too much? Well, of course, we need to meet like you do here today. We need to challenge each other. We need to be a little bit self-critical, because we have situations in time, in history, where perhaps we made the wrong decisions. We need to create space for civil society. We need to create space for the media to monitor. And we need to create space for meetings like this. So I am extremely happy that the government of Sweden, year after year, decide to support organizations like the one who organized this, civil rights defenders, for example, and that the government of Sweden is supporting this kind of discussion to happen. It's our only way to help democracy and to safeguard democracy, because this is something we need to do every day. I'm wearing orange today, as you might notice. It's a fantastic day to be here because it's also the first day of 16 days of activism, and that is, as you know, a big activist movement against violence against women. So, double happy to be here today with you. Good luck. Thank you.